fairly challenging alternate position right now, and I know for myself, part of what sustains me as a teacher in that position is that I have a partner teacher, and we work very closely together to not so much plan. We do plan what we'd like to do with our class, but it's more that we support each other. And again, that supportive piece, then that helps each of us to, to blow off steam a little bit if that's what's needed, and just to remind each other about, where our students are coming from, and just sort of help to sustain our empathy for ourselves and for our students. I think that's a big piece of what mentorship can do, is just it gives you a safe place to, explore and express your emotions as a teacher and what's coming up for you as you're working and afterwards. Being able to emotionally regulate in productive ways is linked to reduced incidence of burnout in teaching, for example. I think for me, mentorship matters again for the relationship building potential. I think that's key. It allows teachers to find other people, to hear other people's stories, and to learn from other people's experiences in a non-judgmental and non-threatening kind of way, I think.
The real strength comes in having a education system that practices what it preaches. So when you're in, we're teaching our teachers, like I just said, to gradually release their students of responsibility, but we're not doing that with our teachers by throwing them into classrooms. And as everybody knows, right, like the new teaching positions are the most challenging ones. You don't get the primo classes. And so mentoring provides an opportunity to be authentic and to take away some of what I see as a bit of a hypocrisy in education. We want the students to have this experience, but not our teachers. That doesn't work. Mm-hmm.
What we have right now in our school district or local is there are funds available for teachers to participate in mentorship. There's not a formalized program in place. There's no training for either party. There's no real oversight. There's nobody checking on or evaluating outcomes. There's not a program per se. It's more of a pot of funds that if pairs are interested, or if one or the other party. Frances has actually participated in the program, so she can speak more to that. Mm-hmm. I think in her case, you knew who you wanted to mentor you, right?
I did. So through a Pro-D workshop, I met a teacher that I was impressed with, and it was my first year teaching, and I was actually in one of these rural schools. So I was teaching kindergarten to grade 10, and there was 9 students. It was my first year teaching, and in a rural community, so felt pretty overwhelmed. And the teacher that I chose is a masterful teacher. She's amazing. But we had, as Shirley said, 2 days of release time. So we didn't even really know how to progress. Like I knew I needed help, but I didn't really know what. And she knew that I wanted help and she was keen to help, but wasn't really sure how to. Yeah. So it basically ended up, I watched her in class for half a day and we had some conversations that afternoon. And then she came out to my class and started a unit for me, which was kind of her and well-intentioned, but the unit totally flopped because we didn't have time to work together to develop it because there's only these 2 days. Yeah. And then that was it. There was nothing afterwards. So I have to, like, the mentoring experience for me actually made me feel a little bit worse, partly because I had sought out help and then it wasn't helpful. And so then I just worried more that, maybe I really don't know what I'm doing. I've had this support and it still is tough. And so with a bit of hindsight now, I can say, sure, part of that was just because there wasn't enough time and structure to make it useful.
I think that the strength in mentorship is that relationship building, and particularly in groups. I know that there's a lot of literature that supports that relationship building and the extended social network as a real source of resilience for teachers. And I think the more that as a profession we can build that and support that, mentorship being one way to do that, I think the better and the stronger that we are as a profession. The way that the inquiry program for quality teaching works, people are, although in that case it's individual questions, you're working together as a group, you're getting to know each other as a group of autonomous professionals, you're considering your practice, you're learning how to be reflective on your practice. I think those are the pieces that if you can support those, then as these other more specific, more contextual pieces come up, like, okay, now, you know, in my new position, I could use some explicit support in this area. You'll have someone who maybe they can help you figure out how to develop something. Maybe they can help connect you with somebody who already has resources you can access, or maybe they can just provide you with, again, the affirmation that, hey, you can do this.
I mean, it helped me hugely. It's helped me since be a better teacher. So my students have gained better skills and had better instruction and achieved at a higher level because I didn't have to figure that out by making mistakes first, right? Like, I mean, we all say it's good to be willing to make mistakes, but in that situation, I didn't have to because I got to see it done well, so I knew. And I could adapt that to my style and what works for me, but for sure those kids were doing better in language arts than in math, where we weren't teaching at the same time. I wasn't getting that mentorship. That first of all provided some background information, sort of some trends with what people who are looking for mentoring are looking for. Like a new teacher versus a teacher doing a new course. Versus a teacher who's questioning maybe their teaching style or their philosophy. Like, they're all very different reasons for looking for a mentor. So some of that background information, I think, for the mentor and the mentee would be helpful, because the mentee can then say, oh yeah, what am I looking for? Like, I know I'm struggling. And then combining that with, I mean, I think in a perfect world, a mentoring program would be something where we're gradually releasing teachers of responsibility, just like we're saying with students. And so your first couple of years, you wouldn't be in a classroom by yourself. You would be teaching with another teacher who has experience and slowly getting more responsibility. I think for me, what would have been helpful at that point was, instead of just being told, oh yeah, there's a mentorship program, they can help you. And for my mentor also, who at the time also expressed, I'm not quite sure what to do here, but I'm flattered that you've asked me to be your mentor. Something that maybe give some information to a mentor about what some of the challenges that a teacher who's looking for a mentor might need. So if it's an early teacher, really what I needed was some affirmation and somebody to have an ongoing conversation and relationship with about education. So yeah, having some skills in place for those mentors would be huge, and also having more of a long-term relationship. I mean, release time is great, but the way that it was, like, we kind of had to figure out how to run our mentoring relationship, which takes up some of the time.
And often what tends to happen with the way that mentorship is currently administered, but for lack of a better word, in our school district is teachers who take on a new role, they need help basically with course planning, right? So it's basically lesson planning rather than mentorship. And that's, you know, how am I going to teach French 8 is often more of a question for teachers going into mentorship than, you know, anything about identity or support or, you know, what is teaching, what is education. It doesn't really provide the opportunity to address any of those deeper, richer questions. It's very much about survival, because that's all that we are currently funded to provide.
So I think my concept of what my job next year will look like is what has changed quite a bit, and part of it is that looking at mentorship as not being, and I think people have different opinions on this, but not being just a problem-solving tool, but being that relationship piece.